Alright guys, Kevin here. So today I'm going to do something different, something I promised you guys. I'm calling it Commies and Comic Books, and it is what I said I would do, a weekly show where I go over the headlines from sites like Vox, from these left-wing rags, and I'll do the headlines for the week, and then I'll also show you guys some comic books from my world-class comic book collection. We can't talk about left-wing rags and their headlines without talking about the biggest headline of this week, which was, of course, the mass shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand. And as I predicted, before the blood even dried, the left-wing journos and politicians were going after gun rights and freedom of speech. And we have a couple of articles about this. The first is from Think Progress, and it says, less than 24 hours after mass shooting at mosques, New Zealand vows to ban semi-automatic rifles. Now, I talked about this in a prior video. New Zealand already has some of the strictest gun laws on the books. In fact, to get a semi-automatic rifle in New Zealand, you have to have a basic weapons permit issued by the police. You have to have a clean psych history. You have to have a clean background check. You have to be of good standing, whatever that means. And you have to open your home up to the police so they can make sure you have one of these things, like I do back there, a safe place to store the gun, and no red flags, whatever that means. There's a huge problem with this kind of quick reaction to these events, and this one especially, because if they actually took the time to watch over the video of this attack, read the guy's manifesto, and learn what they could from this attack by consulting with people who are military veterans like myself or police, they would see that it is painfully obvious that if only one of these people actually had a firearm on them, this attack would have been much less fatal. Now, you might also say, well, if the guy didn't have a firearm, he wouldn't have been able to do this kind of damage. And that's absolutely not true. As we saw in the beginning, he didn't start the attack with a semi-automatic rifle. He started it with a shotgun. He then went on to run people over with his car. He planted bombs, apparently, too. So he was intent on doing a lot of damage. And of course, all he would have had to do is throw firebombs into this crowded mosque or something like that, and he could have inflicted the same kind of damage. And it was clear by his manifesto that that was his intent, was to cause damage and also to try to make this kind of reaction. So they are playing right into his hands. Now, I say this plays right into their hands intentionally because the attacker and his co-conspirators wrote a lengthy manifesto which is available for everyone to read, in which they detailed what they expected to happen following this attack and what their goals were for this attack. And it is all about how they wanted to elicit a response from the left that shows their true authoritarian face, where they go after firearms, where they go after free speech, where they go after free association. They try to get more people deplatformed. And of course, there's a story today from Al Jazeera that says Australia bans Milo Yiannopoulos over mosque attack comments. So what did Milo Yiannopoulos do to get him banned from entering Australia? Well, he committed a thought crime. The article says Australia has denied a visa to far-right commentator Milo Yiannopoulos after he responded to a mosque massacre in New Zealand by branding Islam alien. That's right, alien. He said Islam was alien to people in the West. And he's absolutely right, it is. Islam is very authoritarian, very oppressive, very dogmatic. It might not be a bad thing. I think it's negative, but you don't have to think it's negative, but you have to be able to admit that it is not what we are used to in America and other Western countries, and there is going to be a clash of cultures. And that's the thing. We need to be able to have these discussions, and we can't. And this is why people are lashing out. Not only are they acting very authoritarian, trying to take away our voice online and our platforms, but they're also trying to take away our democratic voice, because given the opportunity to vote on it, no community would vote in favor of resettling a bunch of refugees from the Middle East. The statistics show this, that people are vastly against this policy. But it doesn't matter because they are authoritarians, and if we try to oppose it in any way, not only do they try to shut us down, but they try to go after people's jobs, they try to take away their bank accounts, they try to put them in prison like they did with Tommy Robinson. And then they try to reframe the narrative. They try to reframe the narrative and sell us on this idea that the real threat is somebody else. The real threat are the people who are in opposition to this. And this story here proves it. So this article comes from Washington Monthly, and it says the right has mainstreamed the rhetoric of mass killers. Very hyperbolic, don't you think? It goes on to say, when a person makes the decision to kill dozens to draw attention to their political ideas, our first instinct is to ignore them and refuse to listen. Elevating their ideas only gives them what they want and encourages further attacks. You know, that's funny. That sounds very familiar. Did I say something like that earlier this week? Maybe it was in this video. But when even larger numbers of violent incidences arise from people with the same ideology, it behooves us to listen and to treat those ideas and those who promulgate them with the appropriate level of attentive alarm. And what might be this appropriate level of attentive alarm? Well, if you read the rest of this story, it includes censoring conservatives, destroying their competitors in media, including Fox News and Breitbart, deplatforming or slandering anyone who disagrees with them, and creating this very false narrative that it is conservatives that people should be concerned about and not Islamic terror or left-wing terror, which I admit conservative or right-wing terrorism has been on the rise, but it does not even come close to comparing to historic levels of left-wing terror or current levels of Islamic terror. And as you can see in these charts here, left-wing terror in the past has been much, much worse than right-wing terror is right now. And Islamic terror currently dwarfs every other form of terror on the global scale. So we need to be able to have these conversations so we can show people these facts and make them acknowledge that there is a real threat here. But we can't have these conversations online because the second we do, they go after our accounts. So what does that mean? Do we have our conversations in person in real life? Well, we can try to, but the left will go after us there too. In fact, this article from the College Fix says that fed up with their peers trashing their flyers, college Republicans use hidden cameras to catch thieves red-handed. One girl even said that it's been happening for years. They've been taking down people's flyers, and so they put up a camera in the main corridor of this college, and the camera was destroyed only a few days later. Now, they want to prevent these college Republicans from holding their meetings, but they also want to prevent the meetings from happening in general. In fact, an article from It's Going Down says, anti-fascist mobilization forces shutdown of alt-right speaking event in Vancouver. And they are proud of this. They're proud that masked thugs from Antifa went and bullied a college into shutting down an event. It says, anti-fascists and anti-racists in Vancouver have successfully mobilized to get two venues to cancel a planned speaking event by Canadian far-rightist Stéphane Molyneux and Lauren Southern, scheduled for Friday, March 15th. So, obviously, these are two very bland media personalities. They are not far-right by any stretch, but of course, they are right of the left, so they have to shut them down. By shutting down their speech, they're not doing anything productive. In fact, they're really digging their own grave because they're doing exactly what the government did to communists back in the 1960s and 70s. They went after them, they started shutting down their speech, pushing them into a corner, making them go underground. In turn, they built their little counterculture around their movement, and they started lashing out with acts of terrorism. In fact, way more terrorism than we've seen in this country's history, both from the right and from Muslims combined. So you can see in that graph there, communists have traditionally committed the most terrorism in this country and second most accounts of terrorism worldwide, next to Islam. So that's very important to remember because in 20 years from now, the right may control the media, they may control academia, and they may start going after communists. And we don't want to make that same mistake. It will just keep getting worse and worse and snowballing. Anyway, enough with the heavy stuff. Let's look at comic books now. This week, I picked out some interesting books from my collection. And I say interesting because they're not like the rest of my collection. Most of my collection are older books like Silver or Bronze, some Gold Age, major keys, very high grade older books, and important books. These books, not so much. These are newer books. They're not major keys, but they are keys. There are some interesting books in here. It's basically newer Marvel books that I picked out that I thought were good investment books. So we'll look at these, starting with number 1, She-Hulk. This is not the first She-Hulk. This is the second volume, but it is a cool book and awesome cover there. This book is very interesting. This is Venom the Madness, number 1. And I picked this book right now because Venom's very hot, but everybody's buying Lethal Protector. That's the first Venom series. But there's also the Madness, there's the Mace, there's Funeral Pyre. And you could get this book here for maybe like $10 or $15. And ungraded, of course, but it's worth getting. It's a good book. It's a first issue Venom book. Anyway, this book's cool. This is Amazing Spider-Man 530 from the Civil War saga. And this is where Spider-Man gets his armor from Tony Stark, the new armor that you see him get in Homecoming in the movie. So it is a key, albeit a minor key, but it's probably a fairly valuable book for a modern book. I think it's $30 or $40. This book right here is awesome. Rocket Raccoon, number 1. So cool. Look at that cover. Yeah, great book to have. Great investment book. I think that book's undervalued. Probably like a $50 or $60 book. Maybe a little more nowadays. I don't know. Green Arrow 101. This is a really cool book. This is probably the only DC book I picked out. It is a cool book because it is the death of Oliver Queen, and it's probably an overlooked minor key. This book is not so minor, but it's not a very expensive key. It's still a book everybody should have if you're a serious collector. It is Wolverine number 1. And believe it or not, I did not have this book in my collection until yesterday because I sold my last copy and I never replaced it. Now, I had all the other Wolverine stuff, but not this one. And so this is a must-have. And I got this one from the comic book shop in Wake Forest. Play for Life, and it is owned by Brandon over there, and he's a great guy, and he's got a great selection. This book here is Thor number 412, and this is a minor key, but it is a cool book to have. It is the first appearance of the New Warriors. So if they ever make a New Warriors movie, that book will skyrocket in value. Speaking of skyrocketing in value, this book has skyrocketed in value. Web of Spider-Man 119, the Clone Saga book. This book has just gone off the charts lately. I think I saw one selling for like $200 the other day. So, yeah, it's a pretty neat little book to have. Not many people pay attention to these old Spider-Man books, like, well, the Web of Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man. Speaking of Spider-Man books, Spider-Man number 1, the second volume. That's an awesome book. And that one's gone up in value quite a bit lately, too. Here's another Spider-Man book that has gone up in value quite a bit and is often overlooked. This is the Planet of the Symbiotes. And so you get to see Venom's homeworld. Nice book. Another book with some foil on it, Spider-Man 365. And I think this is another book that's pretty high priced for a more modern book. So have a good run there of Spider-Man stuff. And I guess this will be the last one. It is Spider-Man number 410, and it's the Carnage Saga. So you have, yeah, cool cover on this book, and I do believe that this book is another one that's getting into the hundreds of dollars. I might be wrong about that. Next up, a must-have, Beavis and Butthead number 1, Marvel comic books. Yeah, it's not my usual stuff, but I picked that up because it is a Marvel book. It is number 1, and I love Mike Judge. I mean, he's awesome. Next up, Cloak and Dagger number 1. They just came out with the TV show. I think I got this book in a $5 bin when I was a kid, so I'm not sure if it's gone up much because of the TV show, but it is a cool book, and I think I have a couple copies of that. Oh, here's one more of those Spider-Man books. This is Web of Scarlet Spider number 1. some more of the clone stuff. Next up, we have The Walking Dead, and this is number 69 because, yeah, you gotta have 69. Now, this is the first Alexandria safe zone, so it is a minor key. This is another minor key that's gone up a good bit. This is Spider-Man number 265, and I think this is like the first Silver Sable, maybe? It is a first appearance of a certain character. I don't remember which one, though. A minor character. Next up, we have a book that is really cool. This is X-Men Annual 14. Now, there's some debate whether this is the first appearance of Gambit or not, but I mean, it's a thick book. It's got a great spine. It's good condition, so I had to have it in my collection. And if there is a debate between you and your friends whether this is the first appearance of Gambit, all you have to do is go buy this book, and then you have both of them. So this is X-Men 266, the first appearance of Gambit. And I have 2 copies, so I might have shown you the other copy before, but this is my second copy. So yeah, cool book. And this is a book that's gone up in value a lot lately. I think it's probably about $200 now, so whoopee for me for having 2 of them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. You can subscribe to the channel, share the video, and of course support the channel on PayPal at paypal.me/HailHydra1. That's www. Did I say too many W's there? I think I did. www.paypal.me/HailHydra1. Anyway, guys, I'm out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about this format. I was trying something different. I know I shouldn't change anything. We conservatives, we don't like change, so I'll try to stick to what I usually do. But if you do like it, let me know, and I'll do more videos like this. And if it gets to like 1 million views, then maybe you do like it. You love me. You really love me. That's not what Sally Fields said either. She said something different, but maybe that's just the Mandela effect, changing history. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. You know, I try to respond to everybody in the comments, too. I don't know if you noticed that, but I try to respond to everybody. But when the videos get like 100,000 views, that's when I get to the point where I'm like, all right, I'm done. Anyway, but I do care what you think. I'm out.